Are our heartlands losing their soul?
在3年，我们的目标是开在80到100家门店，在新加坡。
Tapi tak banyak hadal kat tingkat Clementi Mall tu. Tak banyak.
There's been a lot of talk about foreign brands coming in and dominating the scene.
We see them everywhere, from local malls, HDB estates, and even our heritage areas.
Will I still be relevant? Will people still require my service?
In 10 years' time, many China companies will be here. You can't stop it.
We're here in Clementi. This town has been in the spotlight ever since property firm Elegant Group bought the Clementi Mall in December last year. It also owns Grantro Mall at Clementi next door, which has kind of become known for its focus on mainland Chinese food since they bought it in 2016. So it now owns 6 local malls, including Tanjong Katong Complex, a landmark for the Malay community in Geylang Serai.
But the group operating 2 of Clementi's main malls has made some residents concerned about how the neighbourhood's identity might change.
They're worried that local shops will be displaced and that they will have less diverse options, especially fewer non-Chinese eateries.
If we want to get Indian food, we'll go out to like West Coast or along Clementi Road because it feels a bit closed off, a bit like an enclave. And in that regards, our frequency of coming here is not as often as a couple of years ago even.
But generally, I feel like there's also not a lot of Malay or Indian cuisine restaurants around this area also.
That will kind of like nudge out some of our local businesses.
Local shop owners tell us that rising rents have always been a challenge, but the recent acquisition has made them even more worried about whether business can continue as usual.
Some tenants at the Clementi Mall have told us Elegant Group has already asked them for higher rents, up to 55% for some.
The most affected tenants were worried that appearing on camera might jeopardize their relationships with their landlord.
I've been started the business for 26 years as a cobbler. From day one, Clementi Mall opened, then I was here until now. Beginning time, the store is doing well. When you are doing well, management will increase the rental from 10% to 20%. Because the rental increase, I can't afford to pay my rental. We are just a small fry, small company. Big player coming, we just listen to the big player. But big player, if they going to increase the rental, we just move out of the mall.
There's also been a sharp increase of retail rents in the area. Between 2022 and 2025, retail rents along Commonwealth Avenue West rose 29%. One property researcher told us the steeper spike in Clementi's rent is partly down to the rise of mainland Chinese stores there. These stores are attracted to the area because it's a popular spot with mainland Chinese university students and recent grads. We've been seeing this trend in other heartland areas and even mature estates, like here in Marine Parade.
In the past year, we've seen over a dozen foreign-owned shops set up in the area. There's literally an appetite for some of them.
我们在新加坡已经是有在营业，也是27家门店。
我们1年以来已经开了8到10家店。
在3年，我们的目标是开在80到100家门店。
我们的计划是在2030年开到大概25到30家这样子。
元记集团有一个比较企业文化，就是将饺子文化带去全世界。 泰国已经有3家门店，然后马来也是在今年开了第1家，然后英国也开了1家，但是还在装修中。包括我们也会去到越南、印尼、澳洲、美国。18
里梅这个品牌呢，是在中国已经有300家分店。我们选择把它带来新加坡呢，是因为觉得新加坡是一个从商业环境上面还有政治环境是比较稳定的一个地方。然后从人员的结构上来说，新加坡比较多元，所以也符合我们产品的一个定位。
It's not all to do with business expansion though. Some foreign investors also have a personal stake in opening businesses here.
我老公过来大概也有10几年了，之前是想着创业，那现在就是觉得比较在创业的同时，做一个比较稳定的一个认可度以及一个归属感，所以也是打算申请一个 PR。
In some ways, it harks back to our roots as a nation of immigrants. Many of our ancestors also saw a new life here, and that's why we're here today.
But some people say the issue doesn't lie in foreign businesses and immigrants. It's about how the influx has taken place. The sheer scale of these businesses is one thing, but there's also a lack of care for existing communities.
After all, as property researcher Alan Cheong tells us, it's money that talks.
While there may be an economic impact from foreign brands coming in, culturally that's also a problem. But unfortunately, we are in a capitalistic market system, and landlords are free to choose what sort of tenants they want, so long it meets the criteria for the positioning of the mall and they get the optimal rents.
my main concern would be just how much more inaccessible it could get. We're heading to like a noodle place, and already I have like trouble ordering for myself because most of the menu is either in Chinese or it's been like poorly translated to English. I just have to like guess and hope for the best that it like meets my own dietary restrictions.
If other fellas come into control here, I'm not very happy.
To be fair, some foreign brands are catching on to this gap.
就有一些人不是华人的人，他们会可能觉得我不可以吃这些东西。那你原计有什么计划吗？还是
新加坡也很多马来人，包括很多印度人，所以对于这个不吃猪肉的，那我们其实未来在整个的发展部署上面，特别是在马来西亚也好啊，我们会去研究一些非猪肉的一个产品，比如说鱼肉、羊肉、鸡肉。
Okay, so Ranking seems to be moving towards some kind of customer inclusivity, but there are so many other businesses that aren't even thinking about more diverse dietary needs.
And even if they did, do we really want to see the same cuisines and businesses everywhere? Or do we lose our options become less diverse? In the case of Clementi, the government has said that changes to the mix of shops and turnovers are because of commercial decisions. It seems reluctant to interfere with how the free market operates.
But the question is, how free should the market be?
You can't stop it. Because when you cannot open shop, somebody come and open. The government also need prosperity. So they invest money, government happy.
It's obvious that there is demand for these foreign brands. Just look at the long queues for some of the eateries.
But if everything is left to market forces, then majority preferences will always win. So especially when it comes to things like food options, the needs of minority communities may fall through the cracks.
That's why some people think the government should step in, whether it's to control rent increases or regulate the mix of shops in an area.
The point is to make sure local businesses can continue to thrive and for the retail landscape to remain inclusive.
Especially when some of these local shops have been around for decades. Salman Marikar is the third generation owner at Sultan Marikar Framemaker.
His grandfather started the business in 1924 and he took over the reins in 2025. They've called Juchet home for over 25 years.
I've been in the shop since I was a boy. My earliest memory, I was 6 years old, I was in his shop. How I feel about the changes in Juchet, partially it's nice to see it grow, adapt to what people are trying to see. But there's also a part of me that is uncomfortable because with change, that means what's the pressure onto my business? Will I still be relevant? Will people still require my service? And that's a worry.
The competition between local and foreign businesses is getting fiercer and fiercer.
Heritage businesses have been quietly feeling this. I'm not sure whether we have been voicing ourselves well or do we even have sufficient platforms. Foreign businesses aren't the problem. The problem is when economic pressure leaves no room for shops that give a neighbourhood its soul. Businesses like us also face challenges, rising costs due to what's happening in the world right now. And this is what makes it hard for businesses like us in Jucha or Kampong Glam.
If what we eat and what we buy is such a core part of who we are, then maybe our multicultural society shouldn't need to rely on an external force to exist. Maybe it's about having a bit of both.
That means backing our values with action, whether it's eating at your local coffee shop or supporting homegrown brands.
I feel Singaporeans must hold the rein and say, look, we want these things, we want to do this thing.
I am blessed with a landlord who works with me as a partner rather than just a client. He's willing to not forgo to the highest bidder to appreciate that this is a heritage business, has been around for a very long time, and he wants to support this.
It feels like we can't stop our society from changing, but maybe we can go about it with more sensitivity and care.
Kawan ni kawan tu kawan ni kawan semua je kawan. Antara bangsa Cina ke Melayu ke apa pun kawan. Janji baik.
So you want to stop eating xiang-xiang?
曾经让恩怨如小小一念情念，我发现这早间。